This obviously is not a normal cat.
The cat is also a god, right? What is the cat god?
Isis.
Is it Isis?
That sounds terrible, actually.
That sounds terrible. Yeah. No, not that Isis. Welcome back to Shat on TV American Gods Edition, the unofficial podcast companion piece to the Starz series American Gods. I am one of your three hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Dick Ebert, also known as Big D.
Good evening.
And Gene Lyons.
I do not grant wishes.
And this is our deep dive episode where we look back at this week's episode of American Gods and share our insights, research, and opinions. This week's episode was entitled Head Full of Snow. Shadow questions his decision to work for Mr. Wednesday after learning of his plan to rob a bank. Shadow also makes a startling discovery in his hotel room. We're introduced to a couple new gods. There's a very sexy taxi cab scene, and Mad Sweeney goes on a hunt for his lucky coin. Guys, what did we think of Head Full of Snow?
I think in episodes 1 and 2, we started to see a divide happening between this very polarizing show, people who love it and people who hate it. And I think episode 3 really kind of split that wedge hardcore. I know we lost some people. A lot of other people are fanatic about how great this was. People were very turned on by some sex scenes. Other people were completely grossed out by stuff, or just lost their appetite for the show. For me, this was a landmark episode in a lot of ways. I found things that I absolutely adored about the show that I never noticed before, and other stuff that I just am going to have a hard time getting over.
I think this should be an interesting podcast for us. We were texting back and forth today, and the three of us seem to have really, really different views on the episode. Raj and I were liking it to different, to various degrees, and Gene was not having it. And I wonder how much of that is being a book reader. As a non-book reader, the first 2 episodes have conditioned me to just sit back and let the visuals, let the story kind of wash over me. Don't ask too many questions. Have faith that it will be explained. And to that, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a beautifully executed episode. The hotel and the cab scene didn't do anything for me. It didn't shock me as much as the dick pic the week before, but I enjoyed it. At the end of it, I thought, you know what? I felt enough of the plot was advanced. I got a little more world building. I felt that Ricky Whittle really started to come out of his shell. So for me, great episode. I think this is the first out of the 3 that I was excited to rewatch.
The one thing I like about episode 3 is they really started to explain a lot of the backstories of the gods without going into too much exposition. They showed a lot of it, and there's just enough curiosity to where I think people are turning to podcasts or going online and trying to figure out, okay, where did the Jinn come from, and who are the Zoyra sisters, and are they really Slavic, and what's up with Chernabog? And so there's a lot of questions that we'll try and get to for this episode. If you've never listened to Shat on TV, here's the format of the show. We assume you've watched the episode, and we are not going to regurgitate the plot scene by scene back to you. We are going to talk in big overarching themes, ideas, things about the story that happened, and we'll dive into those. So the topics that we're going to be discussing tonight is Ricky Whittle quickly becoming the best part of the show. We'll talk about the significance of the opening death scene and those coming to America or somewhere in America scenes. Big car scene reveals of episode 3, the timing of character introductions. Was the Jinn scene more porn than prose? And is this CGI overkill, or is it just art from Starz? So those are the topics that we're going to be talking about for this particular episode. You can join the conversation by emailing us, hosts at Shat on TV. We do a recap and fan email where we take the best fan responses from the week, your opinions, and respond to them every Thursday on the American Gods Confessional. You can go to our website, shatontv.com, and see all of our viewer email. Just click on American Gods Confessional. So that's it for today. So the first topic that we're going to talk about is Ricky Whittle becoming the best part of the show. Gene.
Guys, I was taking notes on this episode, and my hands were typing the words, and I couldn't believe what was coming out of them. And that was Ricky Whittle is becoming really likable. As all the gods start to show their true colors and get very odd and very enigmatic, and you've got, Zoria P on the rooftop being all mystical, and you've got horrible things happening to Mad Sweeney, you see that Ricky Whittle, he's the guy you relate to, and it makes sense. He's the human, right? He's the everyman. But he's also getting these really great lines, He asks Zoria P when she's like, I've got something you have to do for me, when she asks for a kiss. And he's like, what, you want to fight me? You want to force me to play checkers? Laughing at his own predicament. Telling Mr. Wednesday in the middle of this bank heist plotting that, I like marshmallows. And my favorite line of it, that's a lot of Jesus. He's delivering some stuff here. I'm really starting to like this guy.
Where was this the first 2 episodes? Either they told him to play it deadpan, because I described him as vanilla. The first 2 episodes, there was nothing remarkable or memorable about him. In this episode, it was like the floodgates opened and he became likable, and it's not the actor.
No, I think that he's been surrounded by magic, and that's making him magic, right? Like, in the sense that he's around these eccentricities and is bringing out the eccentricities himself. You got to remember, this guy just came out of prison. Before that, his life was not exactly a charmed one. And so in this case, all he had was love, which he believes the shit out of, as he says. One of the things you also got to notice is, as he's developing as a character, this is physically displayed on his face, right? The beatings that he's taking, the predicaments that he's been in, he's carrying these scars on his face. It's something that a lot of TV shows neglect to do, is that kind of like we saw with Walter White in Breaking Bad, you see him physically change as the show goes on. Shadow is undergoing a transformation, and it's really cool to see that they're incorporating that. As he's gaining character, he's gaining these scars.
Listen, he just got out of prison. His wife is dead. He got into a bar fight with a giant Irish leprechaun, and then he loses a checkers game to a guy who wants to bash his head in the next day. What else does this guy have to lose, So, I kind of like the fact that showing up and he's accepting his fate in this whole story, and he's like, you know what? Screw it. What do I got to lose? I'm going to play Chernabog again after crazy Zoira's sister hands me the moon as a silver coin.
Absolutely right, Raj. And look at the way that he handles Mad Sweeney in the first episode versus the third episode. When they've got him and they're in the Chinese restaurant, he is fucking with Sweeney, and it's great. Like, he's given it as much as he's taken it. This is a changed man, and he's getting really fun to watch. I can't wait to see what he becomes by like episode 7 or 8 of this season.
He gets it from the Azori sister, who says, you believe in nothing, so you have nothing. I think in the beginning he was a blank slate, and maybe he is impressionable and they can create what they want through him and use him as a vessel. But he opens up, and you start to see him really embrace. When he loses checkers, he's a dead man. He's dead man walking. So what does he have to lose? When he has that second game and he starts, even though I know you hate Chernabog, when he's poking him back and he says, come on, play me again. You got nothing to lose. What are you afraid? Are you afraid people are going to know that you've lost a step? When's the last time that you actually swung a hammer? He is fucking with a god. And he's doing it in such a confident way that he tricks him into that second game. Or you see the phone call when he's doing the scam outside the bank. He could have just given what was on the card, just read it off, but he elaborates. He starts going into it, offering the cop a job. He's embracing the world and he's opening it up, and it makes him 10 times more likable character.
Well, when you think about like the way that we talked about gods throughout human history, whenever there was a human or god interaction, or a human had to defeat a god, there was always some sort of trick, right? There was always some sort of game that the human played on the god to overcome to get what they wanted, right? So if you think of it like the story of Medusa, just out of the fact that, he used the mirror to shine back her reflection, turned her into stone. That's kind of what's happening here, right? He's tricking the god into playing him because he knows he's going to win.
Well, he's playing Chernabog's fear against him. And I liked it. I like to see that Chernabog actually has a question. He questions whether he still has the ability, whether he is washed up, or just the idea that people would know he's lost a step. That vulnerability, to me, really made him more of an interesting character. And Shadow plays his insecurities against him perfectly.
Well, that's one thing that the old gods always had, is a lot of ego, right? And a lot of insecurity, right? When you think about of how powerful they are, they were always, if you think about the Greek gods and the Roman gods, which is what I grew up with for the most part, they were always fighting against each other for that hierarchy, that bigger spot on Mount Olympus. And so they're always kind of, swinging their proverbial god dicks around. And I can say that because we've seen a lot of dicks in American Gods.
It's a lot of kidnapping too. There's always some kidnapping.
Yeah, that's right. But I will say this, like, while I enjoy the Ricky Whittle portrayal, I like Shadow Moon, I like how he's becoming into his own, the question I gotta ask, why can he control weather, or was that Mr. Wednesday using his power through Shadow Moon?
I think Mr. Wednesday answers that question in the car scenes, and we'll talk more about those later, but essentially in the sense that he's saying, if you believe that you did that, then the rest of your life you're going to go on thinking you can do the impossible. Okay. And he's like, and if you believe that it's not the case, that it was just, that it had nothing to do with it, then that's your reality. But basically, I think he's putting it in his hands. But I think that we definitely saw that there was a tutelage there. That it can't just be it can go both ways. Like, here's the crazy thing from a viewer is we know, and it's something to always keep in mind. I urge every listener to keep this in mind. We've established from the get-go, Matt Sweeney even warned Shadow Moon about this, that Mr. Wednesday is a con. So if he's making you believe you have a power, that could mean that you actually have a power and he's teaching you because he wants you to be a stronger part of his team, or it could mean that he's conning you, right? Which way is it? It makes the show very interesting.
Well, speaking of Mad Sweeney, I think he's my favorite character of the show because of all the side characters. He is having what appears to be a complete story arc, right? He gets into a fight with Shadow Moon in episode 1. Episode 2, he doesn't really kind of play a big part, but in episode 3, he's coming to the realization that everything that he's known about his luck and about his life is depicted in a manner that, like, oh crap, like, it's not what it used to be. What's different about this? And now I've got something to hunt for, right? I've got a MacGuffin to go towards.
I knew from before the show even started, as soon as I saw character Mad Sweeney, I thought, okay, this is Raj's thing. He's going to go bananas over this guy. But really, I mean, in that, what we're seeing is, I think this is one of the moments where the show really excels too, is they're doing a much more rounded portrayal of this character than we ever got in the novel. And it's really gratifying. I mean, it almost makes you wonder, wow, could this book have been better if Gaiman had focused more on Mad Sweeney? Because there's so much you can do there. And it's not, again, he's not, like, I have issues with Chernabog being kind of a one-note character. There's some vulnerability here. There's some comedy there. There's some anger there. He's really, as you said, a fully fleshed out character. And I again, really enjoy every minute of screen time that Pablo Schreiber has.
Well, if I can ask just a world question, I don't think it would be a spoiler because as a TV only, I ran into it. We see Mad Sweeney, obviously, he's struggling. He's down on his luck. He's walking. That nice gentleman decides to pick him up and offer him a sack of cranberries on the floor. He then subsequently, of course, gets affected by Mad Sweeney's new string of bad luck and has it's a fear I have of road debris on the highway. If you haven't seen the video of that 2x4 get shot through somebody's dash cam, I will attach it to the description of this episode. It's horrifying and it's real. But the police scene of the accident with the dead body, the dead driver, Mad Sweeney is not visible to the police and everyone there, correct? The police aren't questioning him. So am I led to believe as a viewer that those actually in the scene cannot see him?
Well, I mean, Scott Thompson, from Kids in the Hall, who is the driver in that scene, which made me laugh. Hilarious, yeah. I mean, he clearly saw him. But yeah, Mad Sweeney can decide when he's a leprechaun. He can decide when he appears.
How did Mad Sweeney get to Indiana so fast?
Well, he's only in Chicago. That's like next door. I mean,
is it right next door? Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, you could just go. I mean, a bus, a train, a car.
I guess I should have consulted a map before I asked that question.
I only know that because I lived, in Chicago and Ohio and had to cross Indiana often. So it's not that long a drive. From Ohio to Chicago, it's only about 4 hours. So you can get from Eagle Point, which is made up, but it's supposed to be kind of central Indiana. It would only be about like a 3 or 4 hour drive.
But, we've seen something like this before in other shows or movies, is where a character is like down on his luck, everything is bad is happening to him. But the execution of the show is still doing it in such a manner that, like, I'm interested in seeing what happens. Like, I want more bad stuff to happen to Mad Sweeney because I think it's pretty good. It's funny and it brings some levity to the show.
And in true Starz fashion, that pole going through the head and then the blood spurting out of it, that was just
so good.
It was kind of cool.
It was definitely fun. But so again, hoping to see more of Mad Sweeney. Now, the significance, we talked about there's 2 Coming to America or Somewhere in America vignettes. Now, they seem to be interrelated, but the first one we want to talk about is the opening scene, the opening death of what appears to be a Muslim grandmother trying to get something down from the top shelf, and then she's met with death at her door.
Yeah, this is a big scene for me, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was filmed beautifully. I think tension you could feel throughout the scene, and it was nicely executed, the reveal that no, she did not actually get down off the stool and continue to cook her meal, that she had actually died and death arrives at her door. For me, it's important because I need to understand both sides. I need to understand the followers and the faithful and the gods. We've seen the gods throughout the first 3 episodes as they're almost junkies. They're addicted to power and they're addicted to devotion. And in their sad, weakened state, they've become a pathetic shell of themselves. We haven't had a chance to see what do the actual followers get out of it. And with Mrs. Fadil's death and her ascension to heaven, where she's going to be judged on her merits, I thought it was executed very nicely, with the exception of, the cheesy line as she's having her heart removed. Oh, I needed that. The levity I didn't think brought anything to the scene that would actually bring weight to it. I like seeing that the gods do serve a purpose. They're not on earth just to play with their followers and with the human beings, that they serve a purpose. And, this Egyptian god, Anubis, really does feel for his follower. It's the first time we've seen a god actually show caring and judge her in a way and show appreciation for her faith. And it worked, like you mentioned, as a perfect bookend to the episodes. We have death being beautiful. We have death being accepted, juxtaposed to the ending where death can be rejected and returning to life.
Now, Gene, who is Anubis?
So Anubis is the Egyptian god of death, and he, is basically leading Mrs. Fadil to the duat, which is the Egyptian afterlife, right? The realm of the dead, essentially. And so he's kind of shepherding her there. Anubis is often seen as a character with like a dog head in Egyptian depictions. So I like that. I don't disagree that this is a well done scene. Somebody commented on Twitter, it escapes me who did. They said that some of these vignettes are actually of better quality than the rest of the show itself. That they're very artistically done, very clever. The staircase ascension, I thought, with the fire escape was really cool. Even the way they introduced it when they shot down through the different floors, and you could see that there was life going on all around her. And then this one quiet room, this is what's happening in this big city in Queens, So I liked a lot of that. The scene, there were some parts that didn't really work for me, again, with being shoved through the portal by the cat. Like, that was a little much. Which, by the way, I had this debate with one of the listeners about the cat shoving thing. Well, can a cat really push you in the legs and knock you through a door? Wouldn't have to jump and hit you in the chest or face. This obviously is not a normal cat.
The cat is also a god, right? What is the cat god?
Isis.
Is it Isis?
That sounds terrible, actually.
That sounds terrible. Yeah. Not that Isis.
I enjoy also that they showed Mrs. Fadil some dignity. She's died. She's on the floor. She's speaking with Anubis, and she's concerned about the way her family will find her. And the little, character building of, my family will never taste my soup. Will you try it? And I thought it humanizes them all, and it makes them likable. I can deal with hot hotel sex, cabbies that are having just these trysts in the desert oasis, and space boners. If you give me this true character building.
The Kalima scene out of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. She makes a very deliberate statement in the beginning in that scene that I think is important here to talk about, where she says, "I'm a Muslim woman." This is a Muslim household.
It's a Muslim household, yes,
right.
But that does not make her a devout or a true believer. She's living in a Muslim household. But as a young girl, she was raised to worship Anubis.
Okay, so these were stories that were passed down. So theoretically, in this world that's created, if you believe in old gods or you believe in stories from your childhood, if you still believe, then they will appear to you. Is that what I'm supposed to believe?
It looks to me as a TV only. When you die, the God that you truly hold closest to your heart will come to you. If your family is Catholic, but you happen to worship Anubis will come to you because he knows what's in your heart.
Okay.
Because you just pulled it out of your chest.
So so is Santa Claus technically an old god? I mean, he's a saint, right? He's Saint Nick.
So you think when you die, you're going to see Santa Claus?
I might, if I still believe in it.
You're the only one who watched Silent Night, Deadly Night, so maybe that's what he'll come to you as.
The next Coming to America, or somewhere in America, also kind of goes along with that same Middle Eastern Egyptian belief set when the introduction of the jinn. Gene, you had some issues with the timing of the introduction of this character.
Right. So with all these, I had some issues. Now, I felt like on this one, Anubis is such a big concept or such a different concept to understand that I really wish it would have come later in the series. And the series has shown that they're willing to play fast and loose with when people are introduced. So once they do that, I feel they take responsibility for missteps in when they introduce a character. So in that case, I just don't think the timing was right.
Is there a purpose? Did you guys find a purpose for the introduction of 2 Middle Eastern Egyptian gods throughout the theme of this episode?
The only thing I can come up with is pacing. And pacing was a discussion that Gene and I had on the confessional. How can you cover the book in 3 seasons if you're going at the pace of episode 1 and 2?
Sure.
I don't know the end total number of gods, but I imagine that you have to start introducing them in batches or bulk if you're going to get them out before the end of the first season, which I think you have to.
So here's the crazy thing is that the latest word is that they're expecting to go 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, how are you going to hold on that long? So I guess for me, Big D, the question is, okay, so we've got the introduction of Anubis, you've got the Mad Sweeney scenes, you've got the bank robbery scene, you've got the Chernabog scene. Now they're throwing in the Ifrit scene. Was this the best time for them to make an appearance? Like in the book, this is about the right timing, but is it throwing too much at the viewer right now?
No, it felt completely fine for me. And it felt fine for me because he was a character we've already seen. Wednesday meets him in the diner, and they're in passing, Shadow stares at him. If it was a completely new character who we've not seen on screen, I would be like, fuck, you're introducing somebody new. So to me, it's not a new character. They're just letting us learn more about him. They're exploring more of that character.
And Raj, you noticed something that I also appreciate about the Salim and Ifrit vignette about the era that it was shot in.
We're looking at 2 different time frames. I think the show is doing a Westworld, or it's borrowing from that Westworld where it's showing the introduction of gods in different time frames. Sometimes we're seeing that written down, like very specifically, in the case of the Anansi and the Vikings. And others, like this week, there was no time frame. They let the viewers come up with their own interpretation of the time frame, and I thought that was executed brilliantly.
My first impression was, oh, that's weird that they didn't bother giving this secretary a computer. And then I'm like, wait a second, he's calling an actual cab. Look at his suit. Look at the clocks. They're all analog clocks. I go, oh, I get it. Like, this is another era. That's a really cool thing, which tells you a lot. If the Ifrit is meeting with Mr. Wednesday in present day, and this happened years ago, then you get a continuity there. You get an idea of how long this has been going on. So I really appreciated that. Again, these little attentions to detail that they're doing, which I think is something we can, all 3 of us applaud about the show, is the attention to detail.
Yeah, well, that brings us to the next topic. The question that we asked was, is the Jinn, the Ifrit scene, more porn than prose? But I will contest right now, just the very topic, this is probably the early to mid 80s when the AIDS epidemic was, at its height. You had, Reagan denying, you had doctors, you had senators in America claiming that the AIDS and HIV related illnesses was a gay cancer, right? And when you combat the fact that there was a lot of homophobia that was existing in America, just think of what it was in certain other countries around the world, specifically in the Middle East. It wasn't like it is today for you millennial kids, where it's the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want.
And I think also the topic of sexuality and religion combined is a good mix. Besides the fact in the 80s, the stigma that was attached to being homosexual with AIDS and HIV, you also have to deal with that on a daily basis as you balance your faith. It must be hard to go to church every Sunday and read the good book and have faith in God when the pastor's telling you that God hates you, that God is condemning you, that you're living in sin, that you're wrong. And the fear of dealing with your internal struggle with who you are sexually, with the fear of also being killed for your sexuality, has got to be a terrible, terrible dichotomy.
Well,
and just a miserable thing.
Well, let's not forget, it wasn't too far ago here in America that you could get stoned or killed for having predilections of homosexuality or being a different race. So, I mean, this isn't too far. And religion was tied heavily in those, hate-mongering eras. To this day, if you go to certain states in America, it's difficult for gay men and women.
All history aside, let's talk about today. There is a great degree of bravery on the part of Starz, on the part of American Gods in 2017 with the current political climate, with the current social climate, of combining homosexuality and Arabs in a love scene. That's hugely brave. So if we look back at this show right now, a lot of what they're doing, some people might say it's shock value, but you've got a black woman who is a goddess who is consuming people, white people, mind you. You've got a protagonist who is of mixed race. there is a lot going on here as far as kind of breaking down some barriers that, that they obviously, these are things that they could have sidestepped. They could have made a very violent sexual show and skipped these parts or minimized these parts. Instead, they went full bore into them. So kudos to that.
The scene almost was played out exactly how I had imagined it in my head.
Yeah, Salim looks exactly the way I imagined him. He even uses this is probably some of the most true to book scene creation as far as the cab, the sweater, the sunglasses, the way each of them look, the way they're described, the waiting in the room, the way the room is described, even down to the lunch bag that the secretary takes out. This is all on point. And as Big D said earlier when we were talking about this, he said that you could essentially smell the inside of the cab, which everyone knows I love the smell of the inside of a cab. But I want to point out, though, that I did have issues with this. And this is where, this isn't going to be a kumbaya episode because of these few things. Now, to me, this was a very chilling scene in the novel and one of my favorite scenes. So I'm going to take personal umbrage here in the sense that it's supposed to be a love scene that shocks you the next morning, right? And I felt like when they used the CGI and depicted after what I thought was a great sex scene, they shifted to this CGI mishmash of going out into this astral plane in the desert and stuff like that. And that was just overkill. It looked cartoonish. It reminded me of when I used to take ecstasy and watch those mind's eye videos. Like, whoa, there's a cartwheel and there's like fire coming out of it. And
I don't know what I was expecting. When you talk about CGI, the flaming eyes he has are hypnotic. You're making faces at me?
Because you watch this on a phone.
I got to do what I got to do. What are you going to... I'm saying that you're talking about, yes, the Stargate love scene at the end there. Yeah, it was a bit much, but I didn't know what to expect. This didn't feel love scene to me.
Oh.
Hold on. I did not get the vibe, and this has nothing to do with sexuality. I didn't get a vibe that they were connecting. It was a power play almost, where the cab driver was in a more position of power, and maybe it's a top and bottom thing with the relationship, but it didn't feel as a love scene to me more as it was a power struggle. I don't know what it was. And Rod, you can cut that whole thing.
No,
it wasn't a love scene.
No. All right, I think it was a love scene. Now, I was talking to my gay friend over the week, and we got into he's in a new relationship, and we were talking a little bit about this. And again, listen, write in if you think that my friend is totally off base here. But he basically said that one of the struggles in his relationship was that in most of his sexual encounters that he's had throughout his life, he's been more of a, what he coined a bottom. He's been more of on the receiving end. His new boyfriend also the same. So that was like a topic of, really kind of flesh this out. So I don't think it's a power move by say. I think it's just you fall into certain roles. Like in heterosexual relationships, there's positions that we like, and that just comes up in a conversation. I just think that they both assumed the roles that they were both comfortable with in that scene, and it just so happens to be that the djinn was you wanted to penetrate him and ejaculate his fire inside this black obsidian.
So I think I can wrap it up here. And wow, I'm feeling. The passion I didn't feel. There was a cold stare. I expected, dude, if that guy comes out of the shower, there should be some kind of embrace. I didn't see any kissing. I didn't see them actually excited. It was a very sterile love scene.
Okay. All right. So I can't believe I'm going to defend this scene now, but you brought it out of me, Big D. Let me break down. And again, this is here's a weakness of the show. We're three white heterosexual guys. We're going to be lost a little bit here. So please, like Raj said, write in and explain this. But here's my interpretation, right? You've got the djinn. The djinn is driving the cab. He has been in there for 30 hours, right? He is confined to this enslavement, this life, okay? If he could grant wishes, he would get himself the fuck out of there, right? Salim comes to this country. He is failing at business. He has a mission that he is failing at. He is alone. He doesn't know anyone. He's out in the rain. And one of the things that we're overlooking there is that cab scene. When he puts his hand across and touches him on the shoulder, right? He's reaching out to him. When they go up to the room, again, like we said, 80s homosexuality, it's a closeted thing. They get up to the room, and what happens is, if you notice, when he comes out of the shower, when the djinn comes out of the shower and removes his towel, he's showing himself to Salim. Salim goes down to his knees. He is showing his appreciation for this essentially godlike figure for bringing him out of loneliness. He's willing to exchange. He wants to give him oral. And at the same time, the djinn he brings him up. He makes him an equal. He brings him up to his level and takes him to bed like that. No, you're not going to blow me. You don't owe me anything. This is a connection we're going to have. And then in that connection, he becomes the Ifrit himself. So it's something in between. It's not cold sex. It's not necessarily lovemaking. It's connecting. And I think that's the essence of what lovemaking is. And I've never been in a homosexual relationship, so I don't know how that conveys, but it seemed accurate if you were going to try to depict homosexual lovemaking with an Ifrit. That's probably what it's like.
Well, I think that's the whole point of them going out into the desert is to, show in an artistic manner that, he is presenting his power to him.
Look, he's got fire in his eyes. He's got a big chest. He's got a nice beard. He's like, we get it. He's powerful. You don't need to fucking go.
Listen, I wanted to see him. I wanted to see the fire ejaculate. That's what I wanted to see.
Jesus
As a
Christ.
viewer, I ran for the fire hose. That's how I thought I was on fire at the time. We got a couple tweets about a couple of our lady listeners sent in some GIFs of people fanning themselves off.
On a total side note, guys, this is really personal for me, but as a Middle Eastern man, you don't get to see your type of person, a person who looks like you, portrayed as a sex symbol. I think the first time that I saw that was on Lost, right? Like that was the first time where I was like, that guy kind of looks like me and he's considered hot. In a weird way, a totally different subject. This is going to do a lot, I think, for Middle Eastern kids, and like to be able to, obviously you don't want them to watch the scene necessarily, but like that is the sort of thing it was a big confidence booster to be like, oh, you know what? Not every protagonist is either a big hulking, hairless black guy or a big chiseled white guy, but there are Middle Easterners who, I was shocked when people on Twitter were like, wow, that was really hot. That guy looked hot. I was like, really? Like we look hot? Awesome.
Well, there's an article we'll post on our social media from vulture.com where they interviewed the showrunner Bryan Fuller about this specific scene. And it's been a hot topic. If you just Google American Gods episode 3, it's all over the place. But he talks about the fact that when he first saw this scene in the editing room, he said to his editors, hey, this is not depicting what true gay passion love is. I think he made, some sort of side remark about how the djinn's dick, must be candy cane shaped and 12 inches long or 12 feet long to be entering into a hole. So he wanted to really show this. So as you talk about being a man of Middle Eastern descent and finally seeing something depicted, I felt for the first time I'm actually seeing what what real sex looks like.
I haven't seen anything like this since Queer as Folk, and that was a long time ago.
No, I'm only laughing because YouTube was attacking us for the amount of time that we dedicated to dick in during the confessional with the dick pic and all that. Mm-hmm. I'm laughing because I'm just scared back-to-back weeks what the hell we're going to get.
Listen, audience, YouTube audience, you're listening to a podcast called Shad on TV. Okay, that should have been your first indication that we were going to talk a lot about dick.
Also, I can only imagine that Gillian's going to write in about this, so we're going to have to talk about it again Thursday. So, sorry.
So real quick, I did want to talk about what exactly is a djinn.
So the djinn are essentially a fire people. It's a source of where genies came from. But if you go way back, they're people of the fire, and they have their own kingdoms. They have their own kings and queens. And an entire system that's going on there. They can be good. They can be bad. They can be trickster. What we call a shaytun, which is like a demon, basically, right? This is a funny thing about the djinn is that this is not like an antiquated notion. Like I have family members who swear they have seen djinn. Like it is still a very real thing to them. So I don't know if you had anything more to add to it from the article, but that's basically a brief breakdown.
The thing that I found fascinating in my research of what a djinn is that it did appear pre-Islam. Now, basically what we're assuming here is that this jinn is more of the Muslim lore and the Islamic lore versus way back in the Old Testament where instead of there were genies, they were DGINNI, right? King Solomon built the first kingdom of Jerusalem on the back of genies that he had captured. This exists in different type of cultures, which I thought was very cool when they brought up when Mr. Wednesday is having the conversation about Jesus with Shadow Moon, which brings us to our next topic, the big car scene reveals. I thought were awesome.
Yeah, we got a ton of these. If you plan on writing in at host@shadowontv.com and really want to dig into some stuff, I know Jez Bell is probably salivating over this, even though she's kind of turned off to the show. These conversations between Mr. Wednesday and Shadow in the car, especially the nighttime one, there is some serious depth in there. They're revealing a lot about themselves without resorting to really tedious exposition. They're revealing it in the dialogue. Mr. Wednesday reveals one very, very key fact, and I hope everybody picked up on it, that the only thing that can destroy him is being forgotten. That is so critical to the show, and they released it in such a way that it wasn't obscured, but it also wasn't hitting you over the head with it. Shadow counters with his back and forth rapport with Mr. Wednesday and with other characters in the show that he is actually way more clever than we presumed. He speaks with the literary grace. He's a very articulate guy, even though he doesn't talk very much. I wonder if, we saw in episode 2 with Mr. Wednesday blowing the dandelion out the window. A lot of stuff is going on in cars in this show. And so now I'm keyed up. Anytime I see a car scene, I'm really paying attention to what's going on because it's really the only time that they have frank discussions. I think there was a little bit of that too in the laundromat scene between Mr. Wednesday and Shadow. But this show's a really nice tempered mix of action and dialogue. They're really nailing that.
The only thing that I really didn't like about this episode was the bank heist. Did you guys, what was your opinion on the bank heist?
I loved the bank heist.
Did you?
Oh, the bank heist was so well executed. Ian McShane really got to shine. Shadow came into his own with the prank on it. A lot of people did complain. Mr. Wednesday is supposed to have pink earmuffs in this scene. He did not. But it's good to see Mr. Wednesday, it's good to see Ian McShane as an actor get to play this kind of a funnier role there. I liked it.
Yeah, it's the same con that we're seeing played at the airport where Mr. Wednesday is trying to get on the flight in episode 1. But here we're part of it. It is a fun caper. Would it work? No, it would not work. But bringing Shadow along that way, we're trying to make him think we're going to rob a bank, and he's thinking, is this going to be a traditional robbery? No, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. If at the end of this day you're not arrested, will you truly believe in me then? He's using it to not only make some money, but to get Shadow to trust him, to see that anything is possible. And it's cute. Their interactions are lively and believable. They're becoming a road trip that I want to follow.
Big D, let me ask you this. I'm turning into Raj, Jesus. When you saw the bank heist setup and you saw them go in, they're casing the joint and stuff like that, did you expect that it was going to go down like this, or did you expect an action scene?
Oh, I never expected an action scene. When he took the bank deposit slips, I thought he was going to go to Kinko's and try to either forge some kind of document or do something that way, electronic. I never, ever in my wildest dream thought it would be a stand-up traditional bank robbery, because I don't think Shadow would go along with it. He's already conveyed that he does not want to go back to jail. So no, I was not expecting that. I didn't think it was going to go down so slapstick kind of hijinks, laughing at when the police come, and it was done in a way with a certain level of levity that I wouldn't have expected to work, but it really did.
Well, the last topic we want to talk about is, and we kind of touched on it during the Jen and Salim love scene, but it happens right around the whole bank heist when, Shadow is conjuring up the snow and there's cars that appear to be on marshmallows or something like that. Is this CGI overkill? Is it adding to the story, or is it becoming Watchmen style Starz art where it's distracting?
For me, I was really upset about this. There were so many scenes where he didn't need to do it. Let's talk about just the scene where Shadow comes up onto the rooftop with Zoria P. Now, this is supposed to be an enchanting woman. The Chicago skyline on its own is beautiful enough. It is breathtaking enough. You don't need to enhance it in a way that he came up on that fire escape and climbed up there, and it just looked ridiculous. Everything looked so manufactured and silly. I was so put off by it, and not to mention she gave a completely uninspired performance, poor scripting, poor delivery. This was a character I was really looking forward to because she's supposed to be just breathtaking, and you're like, oh, the two old sisters, and then this one's this beautiful breath of fresh air, and instead she was just as cheesy as the night sky.
But don't you think it's possibly for continuity? Anytime we're seeing something that's supernatural, that's not of this world, they have to apply that same effect. So we're aware as a viewer, this is something that is not of the natural world.
So let's talk about that and talk about the risk they run when they do that. What is CGI at its core? Like, how do you do it, right? You do it with computers, okay? So if we're in the realm of the old gods and we're watching stuff in the realm of the old god, and you get any taste of the digital, any taste of the technological, to me, it's off-putting. It feels like some digital thing is at work here, some technological thing is at work. And it bothers me. Like, one of the things I would point out is all the scenes that happen inside of the Zoria sisters' apartment. It looks old. Like, there's just, it's very simple. There's a lamp, there's a table, there's a chest, there's checkers. That feels like the realm of the old gods. So when you go up onto this terrace and you're meeting with another old god, it should be all natural. It should be, this it's a scene bereft of technology.
But you don't think there would be such a stark contrast, because you cannot do a bone orchard or a buffalo with flaming eyes in a way that truly looks real. There's no way to make that. So we go, that's exactly what a buffalo would look like with flaming eyes. That's what a bone orchard would look like. If you do those that are clearly CGI because your brain can't process it, and then you do the Chicago skyline in a way that looks believable, I think they wouldn't fit together.
Yeah, but Chicago's an old Gothic city, though. I think is what Gene is trying to say is you can use CGI. I mean, we saw movies like The Dark Knight do use it very effectively, and even in the show, like, we get it. We've talked about this before. It's a graphic novel. It's supposed to be a little heightened, but use that to tone it down a little bit. I agree with Gene. It felt out of place.
Hold on,
compared to the other Zoira sisters.
Okay, this isn't Batman where he's driving around the street. She is reaching up and pulling the moon from the sky.
Right, and that's easy enough to do without doing the whole scene like that. Here's an example. Is what we're saying is, okay, he meets with the other two Zoria sisters. He meets with Chernabog. Chernabog is holding that hammer. It's fucking bleeding. Like that is an okay effect. We get it. Now, they're all gods. They didn't make CGI walls and a CGI checkers board. Like, it wasn't necessary. It's a bit so just have the CGI when, or maybe she has a glow to her. I could have gone with that. Like, if she was glowing a little bit. It just bothered me. And then getting to the big one that I really couldn't fucking stand was we had a scene out of like the Cars video. You remember the Rick Ocasek band?
You might think.
Yeah. You might think I'm crazy.
Why is the car driving on a fucking marshmallow? What's going on there?
It's driving on a marshmallow because it can.
No, but he's like, think of snow. Think of snow. All right, I'm thinking of a car driving on a marshmallow, then shooting out in outer space. What the hell?
I kept waiting for the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man to come marching down Broadway.
In addition to that, we've got another CGI scene with the rain scene, right, where the rain's like kind of slow-mo falling and bouncing off stuff. Did that scene do anything for anyone? I was confused as to why Mr. Wednesday is hitting on one of the Zoria sisters, and she says, I can taste you on the rain, and I taste something else, war. Like, come on, did this do anything for anyone?
So Chernabog and the Zoira sisters come from Slavic lore. Chernabog talks about how he's a black god. You guys talked about this in last week's deep dive. I don't think you guys touched on who the Zoira sisters were and what their purpose is.
Well, I think the episode we didn't because this episode makes it clear, right? They're three sisters who are basically guardians of the sky. They keep a monster at bay. They open the door for their father, So I mean, that's all explained in this episode, right? But they are a trio. That's why you never see all three of them at the same time. They take shifts, as Big D so eloquently put it.
Okay, let me ask you this: is the monster in the sky someone that we've seen or someone that we know? When they point to the Big Dipper, that's part of Odin's wing or something like that, right?
They say Odin's Wain and the bear.
Odin's Wain and the bear, right? And they're guarding the big apocalyptic monster. So have we seen that thus far, you think? Or is it yet to come?
Well, I think it's Thanos. We've not seen it.
It's the Infinity Stones? We've crossed over to Marvel. All right.
And before anybody takes us to task on it, I am aware that there are only two Zoria sisters in actual lore. That a third one was added by Neil Gaiman. Let's just get that out of the way before we get a million emails about this.
That's right.
Gene said,
yeah, exactly. Now the final end scene, you see Mad Sweeney digging into Laura Moon's grave, Shadow Moon's ex-wife or dead wife. She's not there. He opens up the casket. It's not there. You see where supposedly the coin has melted through the soil, melted through the casket. Now she's alive in Puppy's room. What's going to happen here? Do we now have iZombie here? What's going on?
You keep the translation from the written word to the screen. The closed caption even says puppy. She clearly says in a Latin way, Poppy.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Dude, you've been like, I get it. The Brazilian connection, I get it. Your wife is Brazilian, her sister visits. Maybe your hearing has been tainted by this. She clearly says puppy in about as Caucasian a way as humanly possible.
Yeah. It's very annoying.
Now, I was talking with one of our listeners, one of your favorites, Raj, T. Karan. Is that Tom?
Tom,
is that
he's
right?
my favorite.
Yeah, Tom. Tommy and I had an extended conversation last night about this, and one of the things that we talked about was we have a combined fear that Laura is going to become a really big character in this, and they're going to take insane liberties to make her really funny. I've got a bad feeling about this. Just the way that she's portrayed, the way she's sitting on the bed, hi, puppy, and hi, puppy. And
there we go.
Anytime people in 2017 get a hold of an undead character,
right,
like you said, it's going to be an iZombie wank fest. I'm really nervous about this. So please, American Gods, don't let me down.
Yeah, there's only room for one truly funny character and then one character that just has a lot of charm. And I believe those characters are Mad Sweeney and Mr. Wednesday. Mr. Wednesday has a wit about him. He's fun. He's exciting. He has good lines. But, if you're looking for a strictly every time he's on scene, I'm going to laugh. There's a little bit of levity to him. For me, it's Mad Sweeney.
Raj, we talked in our preview episode of this season about people who could have played the characters other than the people who were actually cast as them. And I had a revelation during the scene where Mr. Wednesday is talking to the guy at Kinko's. And he's like, I'm going to need you to make this, and I might even need you to design a poster or something like that. And I thought Christoph Waltz would be an amazing Mr. Wednesday.
I think we talked about Christoph Waltz.
Did we really?
Yeah, we did. We did talk about
genius.
Christoph Waltz.
We are
so
genius.
Good. We're genies. Genies. Well, looks like I'm trapped in a taxi cab for another 30 hours.
Don't worry, I'll come rub you out.
Oh, Jesus.
Fill me with your fire.
Oh, God.
You know what? The best part about this is that Comic-Con is just a couple weeks away, I already know what I'm going to be.
We should go as
Salim and the Chin.
Salim and the Chin.
So if I come over and I see Gene's sweater laying on your floor, Raj, I'll know what went down.
Oh, well, listen, I think he's got 3 sweaters that he's left over at my house already. Well, that concludes. Show's gone off the rails. So now's the time. So that concludes our preview. No.
This isn't the movies. Now's the time we rate. No.
So that concludes our review, our deep dive. This week's, again, please, if there's anything we missed that you want to talk about or that we glossed over or that we got totally wrong, in your opinion, please write us in. What's that email, Gene?
The email is hosts@shadontv.com.
You can also visit our website and see all the fan listener email and responses. You can join the conversation. There's a comment box that you can talk to other fans as well. But while you're there, there's a little feature that we do with shout-outs. What is a shout-out, Gene?
Shout-outs, just a little way to show your support for the podcast and hear your name on the air. Basically, if you don't want to write us a whole email and get read on the American Gods Confessional, you can write yourself a little shout-out. So you get on the shoutontv.com, scroll down, you see a little slide out, says shout-outs, put your name in there, and we will read your name on the air. This week's shout-outs go out to Mark and Christina. Thank you so much for listening and visiting the website. And yeah, so again, if anybody wants to shout out for next week, go ahead and visit, and we'd be happy to read your name on the air.
That concludes this week's episode of Shout on TV American Gods Edition. Be sure to follow us on social media and share the podcast with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram @ShoutOnTV. If you're not following @ShoutOnTV on Snapchat, you're missing out because Gene does an amazing job with the Twitter there and the Snapchat. So check that out. We're also on Facebook. Just search for Shout on TV Podcast. The website again is shoutontv.com. Our email is hosts@shoutontv.com. We're everywhere. Fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you stop by any of those, please leave a 5-star review. That really helps the podcast grow. We're in the early infancy stages. There's a lot of podcast competition out there, and we think some of the other podcasts have been going onto our iTunes and leaving just crappy remarks to try and drive us down. So if you like Shout on TV and you want to see us succeed and you want more of this, because it can't be the content, because we know we're awesome. Please please leave a 5-star review. And then go on my Twitter and then troll me all you want. At Roger Roper. Roger _Roper, I think, is my my Twitter name. But yeah, so you can also check out our store for cool website merchandise. We saw our great friend Marty over at Great Northern Radio wearing some of our shirts. That was really cool.
Dude, he looks frighteningly like me.
Yeah.
That is scary.
It's uncanny. He's the Scottish Gene. I think Gene is a Scottish name, isn't it?
Gin?
Right in. Yeah, Gene. Yeah, anyway.
Secret's out.
So, on behalf of my two co-hosts, Gene Lyons and Big D Dick Ebert, I'm Roger Rober. Be sure to join us next Tuesday for our deep dive of episode 4 and this Thursday for our American Gods confessional. Thank you. Take care. Good night and hail the old gods.